monarchy will be shifting in a slightly different direction.
I think it's safe to say that change is...
William had arrived at Balmoral expecting silence, privacy, and a brief escape from the pressures surrounding the crown. Instead, beneath a sealed section of the estate, he and Catherine discovered something that transformed the royal retreat into a place they could no longer bear to remain. Hidden inside a protected stone compartment was a message written by Diana, one containing a warning so personal and so disturbing that the couple abandoned Balmoral before the night was over. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William had entered the Scottish estate, hoping distance would quiet the pressure building around his family. Balmoral, the monarch's Highland residence, had once offered him childhood freedom, yet it also carried the memory of Diana's final summer. Catherine understood why he hesitated at familiar corridors. She also understood why he had come. He needed a place where the future king could breathe without every decision becoming palace business. A Balmoral caretaker changed everything when repair work beneath an older passage loosened a stone that should not have moved. He brought William to a narrow cavity absent from the plans, then stepped back as the prince called Catherine downstairs. They opened a weathered case hidden inside the wall. Diana's handwriting waited within it. William read the first line standing beside a wooden table, then his face emptied. He lowered himself into a chair, gripping the paper as though letting go would make it disappear. Catherine asked what his mother had written, but he could not answer. When she knelt beside him, he passed her the message. Catherine felt fear replace confusion. Diana had not written a memory. She had addressed her sons directly, and warned that one day the institution might try to separate duty from love, then force the heir's wife to choose between protecting him and obeying the crown. The princess read that line twice, because it no longer sounded like history. It sounded like a warning meant for her. The final page was missing. A torn edge showed it had been removed deliberately, and the message referred to another document concealed elsewhere beneath Balmoral. William examined the fastening and found a fresh scratch across the metal. Someone had opened the case years after Diana hid it. Catherine closed the lid. William ordered that no palace office be told and demanded their luggage before midnight. Yet before their car reached the gates, Charles learned his son had fled. William believed distance would protect them, but Diana's message had already pulled the king, Camilla, and the future of the monarchy into the same dangerous circle. The message did not wound everyone in the same way. For William, it reopened the grief of a son who had spent decades learning to survive without answers. For Catherine, it introduced a threat she had never expected to inherit. For Charles, it revived a past he had spent years containing. And for Camilla, Diana's words carried a deeper danger. The dead princess had reached across time and placed herself once again at the center of the monarchy. William sat in silence as the car carried them farther from Balmoral. The estate had always been more than a royal retreat to him. It was where childhood freedom had once existed beside duty, and where his final memories of Diana remained trapped beneath years of royal discipline. Now the place felt different. The hidden message made him wonder whether his mother had always intended him to return and find what others had tried to bury. Catherine watched him hold the protective case against his knees without opening it again. She had spent years becoming the calm presence beside the future king, helping him carry pressure without allowing it to consume their family. Yet Diana's warning had placed her inside the same struggle. The monarchy was no longer asking only what William would sacrifice. It might soon demand something from her as well. William finally admitted that seeing his mother's handwriting had made him feel 12 years old again. The confession came quietly, but the pain behind it was unmistakable. Catherine placed her hand over his and asked whether he believed every word. He did not answer at once. Then he said the message felt too precise to dismiss and too personal to misunderstand. Catherine remembered the line that frightened her most. Diana had warned that the woman beside the heir might one day be forced to choose between protecting him and obeying the crown. The princess recognized herself immediately. She feared that moment was no longer distant. Charles received the news at another royal residence through a short written briefing. The king read the note twice, placed it beside his untouched drink, and asked, "What exactly did they find?" Before the aide could explain the hidden compartment, Camilla spoke. "Was it beneath the old western passage?" Charles turned toward her. The queen consort had revealed knowledge no one had yet shared, and her attempt to remain calm only deepened his suspicion. She said she remembered hearing about the passage years earlier, but the monarch knew that explanation was incomplete. William reopened the case and showed Catherine three strange references in Diana's message: the heir, the guardian, and the woman the institution will protect. Neither said the names aloud, yet both understood the possible meaning. Charles soon requested a private meeting at a royal residence. William refused. He demanded neutral ground, no courtiers, and no palace secretaries. But before father and son could face each other, Catherine found a date in Diana's handwriting, and it led directly to the night the secret began. Diana's warning had not been written during a vague period of unhappiness. It carried a date, a place, and the emotional imprint of one precise night at Balmoral. That night, a private argument behind a locked library door convinced her that decisions were being prepared about William's future without her knowledge. She left the room shaken, returned alone hours later, and began writing the message her eldest son would discover decades after the people involved believed it had vanished forever. Catherine found the date near the top of the first page and immediately understood why it mattered. It matched a private family gathering held at Balmoral during William's childhood, an occasion later remembered as calm and uneventful. Diana's account destroyed that version. Behind the formal meals and controlled smiles, a far more serious struggle had been unfolding over her son. Senior royal figures had discussed placing William under greater palace supervision. That meant officials would gain more control over his schedule, education, public duties, and preparation for kingship. Diana believed the proposal would slowly reduce her influence, until the boy was shaped first as an heir and only second as her child. The point of no return came inside the library. Diana overheard Charles approving a written plan that expanded the palace's authority over William's daily life. She confronted him before the meeting could end. The prince insisted the arrangement was necessary, then delivered the words she never forgot. The heir belonged partly to the institution, not solely to either parent. Diana walked out with tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to break in front of the waiting staff. Hours later, she entered William's room, adjusted his blanket, and stood beside him in silence. In that moment, the princess understood that decisions about his childhood were already being made beyond her reach. Charles remembered the night differently. In the present, the king insisted the proposal had been designed to protect his son from marital conflict and public chaos. Yet when an aide repeated the date, he stopped speaking. He knew it marked the moment Diana no longer trusted his promises. After midnight, she returned alone to the lower passage carrying paper, sealing material, and a small brass key. She wrote that if William ever found the message, the same battle had returned in another form. One line changed everything. Diana revealed that another person had seen her hide the documents and promised to guard them. She called that witness the one who refused to bow when the room demanded silence. Catherine recognized the description. It pointed to Anne. William asked for a private meeting with his aunt before facing Charles. The Princess Royal had protected the truth for decades, but once Diana's message was placed before her, silence would no longer be possible. Princess Anne did not deny recognizing the handwriting. She did not ask where the message had been found, or why William had come without an aide. The moment he placed the sealed pages on the table, she looked at Catherine, then back at her nephew, and understood that a promise made to Diana had finally reached its reckoning. What followed was not a royal consultation. It was a confrontation between a grieving son and the woman who had guarded the truth. William had chosen a small sitting room where no courtier, secretary, or security officer could interrupt them. He placed the protective case between himself and Anne, then asked whether she had watched Diana hide it beneath Balmoral. The question landed without ceremony. The Princess Royal stared at the fastening and admitted that she had entered the lower corridor on the night of the library dispute. Anne said Diana had been carrying papers, sealing material, and a brass key. She had refused to read what was written, but she agreed to protect the hiding place. Her promise was precise. She would remain silent unless William's freedom was threatened by the institution again. The princess believed that moment had never truly arrived. Now, facing her nephew, she knew she had been wrong. William pushed his chair back. Anger finally broke through the grief he had carried since leaving Balmoral. He accused his aunt of allowing him to live for decades without knowing that his mother had left him a warning. Anne rose too. She told him Diana wanted the message discovered by her son, not delivered by someone who might use it to shape his choices. Catherine stopped the argument before it became cruel. She asked them to sit, then read aloud the line about the heir's wife being forced to choose between her husband and the crown. The crown meant the monarchy as an institution, including the advisors and rules surrounding the sovereign. Her voice stayed calm, but her fingers tightened around the page as she asked what danger Diana had expected. Anne admitted she once believed the warning belonged to a conflict that died with its author. Yet she now saw the same machinery closing around William and Catherine, controlling their duties, movements, and future authority. Then she revealed something worse. Diana had folded one final sheet separately and marked it with a royal cipher, a private identifying symbol used to connect sensitive papers to a particular household. The mark had not belonged to her. Years later, Anne had seen Camilla leaving the locked western corridor. The queen consort claimed she had taken a wrong turn, but no one entered that passage by accident. Before William could respond, a direct message arrived from Charles ordering him to surrender Diana's papers as private royal property. The prince read it aloud, folded it once, and refused. That refusal turned a family secret into a battle over royal power, forcing the king to choose between protecting the crown and preserving what remained of his bond with his son. The message may have been written by a mother, but the institution quickly treated it like a weapon. Palace lawyers questioned ownership. Private secretaries warned of constitutional embarrassment. Senior advisors urged Charles to recover every page before its contents escaped royal control. Yet beneath the legal language stood a deeply human struggle, a father demanding possession of the last warning left by his former wife, and a son refusing to surrender the only explanation she had ever written directly for him. Charles listened as advisors reduced Diana's words to questions of control. They argued that anything written at Balmoral could belong inside the private royal archive, the protected collection where personal papers connected to the sovereign are preserved. According to them, William had no right to remove, conceal, or release the message without the king's approval. William rejected that argument completely. Diana had not addressed an office, a palace, or the crown. She had written to her sons. To the prince, the demand proved the very danger his mother had described. The institution was once again claiming ownership over something deeply personal and placing royal authority above the bond between a mother and her child. Charles remained alone after the meeting ended. He opened a folder containing photographs of the hidden compartment and stopped at the image of Diana's handwriting. The king removed his glasses and set them beside the file. Then recognition struck him. He remembered the royal cipher connected to the missing page. The mark belonged to a private classification once used by his own household. It linked sensitive papers to the office surrounding the heir. If Diana had copied it, then the removed sheet might contain an instruction, memorandum, or approval carrying Charles's authority. The discovery no longer threatened only the monarchy, it threatened his version of the past. Camilla entered and urged him to recover the message before distrust spread through the family. The queen consort warned that William's refusal could weaken confidence in the household, but Charles asked a colder question. How had she known the compartment lay beneath the western passage? Camilla avoided his gaze. She told him she had entered the corridor years earlier after hearing that it contained material capable of reopening old wounds. She denied removing any page and insisted she had found nothing. Yet the monarch heard the hesitation beneath her words. Her admission answered one question while creating several more. Charles wanted reconciliation, but fear drove him toward control. He worried that William now saw every palace decision as proof that Diana had been right. Still, the king authorized a small royal team to retrieve the papers from his son's residence. Anne learned of the order before it was carried out. She immediately telephoned Catherine. The crown had chosen force disguised as procedure, but by the time the officials arrived, the princess had already decided where she would stand. Catherine had spent years mastering the discipline expected of a future queen. Listen before speaking, remain composed under pressure, and never allow private pain to become public conflict. But when representatives of the king arrived to take Diana's message, she did something few inside the royal household expected. She stood between the crown and William's inheritance, refused entry, and closed the door. That quiet action changed the balance of the dispute more powerfully than any public declaration could have done. Anne's warning reached Catherine only minutes before two senior household representatives arrived, carrying written authorization from Charles. The document described their visit as a routine archival transfer, meaning the formal removal of papers for storage within the royal collection. They insisted they were not there to search the residence. Yet the princess understood the truth immediately. Once the message entered palace custody, William could lose control of his mother's words, and the missing final page might remain buried forever. Catherine opened the door herself. She read the authorization without inviting either official inside, then handed it back across the threshold. Her voice remained calm, but the refusal was absolute. No letter written by a mother to her son, she said, would be removed while that son was absent. The representatives warned that her decision could be treated as defiance of the king. She closed the door anyway. William returned expecting another argument over procedure. Instead, he learned that his wife had placed her own standing at risk to protect what Diana had left him. Fear crossed his face before gratitude could reach it. He warned Catherine that the household might question her judgment, her future role, even her loyalty. She answered with the line neither could escape. Diana had predicted that the woman beside the heir would be forced to choose between her husband and the institution. Catherine had chosen him. Charles received confirmation that the retrieval order had failed. The king gripped the arms of his chair, not with fury, but disbelief. Catherine had always been the disciplined one, the bridge between duty and emotion. Her refusal told him that even she no longer trusted his intentions. William reopened the protective case and noticed faint impressions pressed into its empty backing. Catherine suggested careful tracing under angled light, without damaging the material. Slowly, broken words emerged. Remove her influence, before the heir understands, and approved at Balmoral. The prince felt the meaning settle like a verdict. The missing sheet appeared to record a plan to distance him emotionally from Diana, while he was still too young to resist. William did not release the fragments. He called Charles instead and demanded one final private meeting. The king had to come alone without Camilla, lawyers, or officials. The doors and orders had failed. Now only a father and son remained. There were no uniforms outside the room, no private secretaries taking notes, and no prepared statements waiting to soften what would be said. Charles arrived alone. William was already seated with Diana's message in front of him, while Catherine remained nearby only long enough to ensure the meeting began peacefully. Then she left father and son together. Behind the closed door, the future of their relationship depended on whether the king would defend the past or finally admit it. William had chosen a private family property instead of a royal palace. No portraits, ceremonial offices, or waiting officials stood between them. Protocol, the formal rules that normally govern royal conduct, had no power in that room. Charles could not speak only as the monarch, and the prince could not hide behind his position as heir. They faced each other simply as a father and son carrying decades of unfinished pain. Catherine placed Diana's message on the table before leaving. She told them that the conversation had to be about truth, not victory. William watched her close the door, then opened the protective case and read the recovered phrases aloud. Remove her influence, before the heir understands, and approved at Balmoral. He asked Charles whether he had authorized a plan to reduce Diana's place in his childhood. The king said nothing for several seconds. He reached toward the page, but his hand stopped before touching it. Then the silence broke. Charles admitted approving greater institutional control over William's upbringing. He had believed stricter schedules, royal supervision, and distance from the conflict between his parents would shield the boy from chaos. Instead, the decision had wounded Diana and frightened the son he claimed he was protecting. William refused to accept the explanation as innocence. Protection without honesty, he said, had become manipulation. Diana's warning mattered not because it proved she had been right about everything, but because it showed how deeply she feared that her son would one day lose control over his own life. Charles lowered his head. Then he revealed the truth about the missing sheet. He had seen it years earlier after a household official removed it from Balmoral. The page contained a copy of his written approval from the night of the library confrontation. It had been placed in a restricted family file, a sealed archive available only to a small number of authorized people. The king gave William the exact reference and promised him unrestricted access. He also admitted that Camilla knew the document existed, though she had not removed it herself. A former official had acted under instructions to secure sensitive family papers. William did not offer instant forgiveness, but he agreed not to turn Diana's message into a public weapon. In return, Charles withdrew every claim over the letter and accepted that his son would control what happened next. Their private battle had shifted. Yet once the departure from Balmoral became public, the monarchy could no longer stop the world from demanding answers. By morning, the argument was no longer contained within royal walls. William and Catherine's unplanned departure had been noticed, their shortened stay confirmed, and Balmoral's silence became the loudest part of the story. Newsrooms searched for explanations while crowds gathered outside royal landmarks. Yet one image captured the public mood more powerfully than any headline: the estate gates standing closed beneath heavy rain, hours after the future king had driven away carrying a message from his mother. Reporters quickly confirmed that William and Catherine had left the Scottish estate late at night, even though they had been expected to remain for several more days. Palace representatives refused to explain why the visit had ended so suddenly. Their silence was intended to contain the damage, but it achieved the opposite. The absence of an explanation made the departure feel less like a private decision and more like evidence of a serious family rupture. Charles finally authorized a limited statement. It described the crisis as a private family matter involving a discovery connected to Diana. The wording was designed to calm speculation, yet the moment her name appeared, public interest exploded. The princess had been gone for decades, but her influence had returned with astonishing force. One national newspaper captured the mood with a front page showing Balmoral's rain-covered gates beneath the headline, "Diana's words send William home." Television presenters held up the image throughout the morning, turning it into the defining symbol of the crisis. The closed entrance no longer represented privacy. It represented everything the monarchy had refused to explain. A quiet crowd soon gathered near Kensington Palace, Diana's former London home. One woman placed a handwritten card beside the gates reading, "A mother's voice still belongs to her sons." Others began leaving white flowers around it. The gesture was simple, but its message cut through every palace statement. Catherine watched the coverage beside William, as commentators debated whether the letter exposed a historic betrayal. When the discussion began turning Diana's pain into entertainment, the princess switched off the television. She told him that truth mattered, but not every truth deserved to become public property. Camilla faced a different kind of silence. The queen consort saw her name pulled into the coverage, despite the palace withholding details. After an aide left, she remained alone, knowing suspicion would follow her even if the missing page cleared her of removing it. Anne then addressed the family privately. The Princess Royal confirmed that Diana had intended the message for William. Her intervention ended every challenge to his ownership. William began drafting a final declaration. The world expected revenge, but he was preparing something stronger, a boundary the monarchy would never be permitted to cross again. William could have released every page. He could have exposed the names, reopened old wounds, and allowed Diana's private fear to become a public judgment on the crown. Instead, he chose something more difficult. He protected the message while refusing to bury its meaning. Beside Catherine, he declared that no institution, however ancient, should possess a person's memories, marriage, children, or grief. The couple had abandoned Balmoral in shock, but they emerged from the discovery with a clearer purpose. William entered the restricted archive carrying the reference Charles had given him. The archive was a protected collection, where sensitive royal documents were kept away from ordinary access. Inside the identified file, the prince found the missing sheet from Diana's case. It contained his father's written approval for greater control over his childhood preparation, followed by his mother's handwritten rejection of that decision. Diana had not hidden those words to destroy Charles. She had hidden them so her son would recognize the moment duty stopped guiding his life and began consuming it. William finally understood that her warning was not a call for revenge. It was a demand that he never surrender his identity, simply because the monarchy expected obedience. William returned to Catherine and placed the recovered page beside the rest of the message. At the same table where they had first examined Diana's words, he sealed every sheet inside a new protective case. The future king kept one hand resting upon it and decided the letter would remain a private inheritance for his mother's sons and grandchildren. Charles listened when William explained that forgiveness could not erase what happened. The king accepted responsibility through a documented family statement and formally withdrew every institutional claim over Diana's papers. Truth had not repaired everything, but it had finally ended the need for secrecy between father and son. Catherine had done more than offer comfort. The princess prevented history from repeating itself when she refused the retrieval order. Standing beside William had required her to stand against the machinery surrounding him, and he understood the courage that choice had demanded. Camilla was cleared of removing the page, though the queen consort accepted that her secret visit to the corridor had deepened suspicion. Anne was released from her promise and told William during a recorded private conversation that Diana's message had reached him when he was finally strong enough to understand it. Charles ordered the restricted filing system reviewed. Personal letters addressed to relatives could no longer enter royal custody without consent. William and Catherine did not return to Balmoral that season. Their departure became the moment they refused to let the crown repeat an old violation. Diana's message did not destroy the family. It forced them to confront the cost of silence and gave her son the courage to remain himself within the monarchy. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.